Welcome back, everybody. My name's Trevor, and in this video we're going to talk about what you need to get started in astrophotography. In late 2019, I started taking photos of the moon with my point-and-shoot camera through a spotting scope, and I was blown away, and I wanted to do more. I wanted to get into astronomy, and I discovered more advanced techniques of astrophotography on YouTube, and I was like, wow, I need to do this. This is awesome. And here we are now, and every clear night I'm outside with my telescope taking new pictures of deep sky objects and improving my skills as much as I can. But what gear do you need to get started in astrophotography? In this video, we're going to go through all the steps and what I recommend for you guys interested in getting into the beginner level astrophotography on what you need to get started. Astrophotography covers a wide range of different techniques and different realms of photography. You have landscape night photography, deep sky astrophotography, and planetary photography of the moon and planets like Jupiter and Saturn and Mars. Deep sky astrophotography being by far the hardest and most challenging of the three. When getting started into astrophotography, my first recommendation is get a DSLR camera with full manual control and start learning the processes of using that camera in manual. I didn't know how to use a DSLR when I started, so it was all new to me, and it really helps if you have a background in photography to begin with, but I didn't have anything. I learned from scratch, and here I am now, and I'm doing just fine. The big challenge in deep sky astrophotography is taking ultra long exposures and tracking the night sky, which is a whole new world if you're coming from a static tripod night landscape style of thing. What we do in astrophotography is we counter the Earth's rotation of the night sky by tracking the speed of the sky as the Earth rotates, and that is when this little mount comes into play. This is the Skywatcher Star Adventure Pro. It is a small German equatorial mount that has an 11-pound payload capacity, and it tracks the night sky to take long exposure photos of deep sky objects. The three things that will be most difficult when starting out in astrophotography will be focusing, polar lining, and finding your target. Those were the things that were most time consuming for me starting out, especially finding targets with a manual mount like this. So what kind of telescope or camera lenses do you need? Well, if you're already familiar with DSLRs and photography, it's a good chance you'll have a camera lens that you can use for astrophotography. You can even use the Canon kit lenses that come with the DSLRs to begin with. This is what I started with right here, which is a 55 to 250 millimeter zoom kit lens from Canon. I took several deep sky astrophotography photos starting out with this, and it was a great result at the time, and I was super happy with it. Later on, I upgraded to a Canon 50 millimeter lens, prime lens, which gives you a really wide field of view for some really nice wide field Milky Way shots, like this one here. It was taken with a modified Canon XSI and a Canon 50 millimeter lens, which is this setup right here. I can't say enough good things about the Skywatcher Star Adventure. It's a solid little tracking mount. I used it for basically 2 years straight before I upgraded to a go-to robotic mount, computerized mount, which in the long run, if you decide on getting large telescopes, you will need a go-to German equatorial mount like a HEQ5. But if you're wanting to get into the telescope range of optics, I highly recommend a small, compact, apochromatic refractor, such as the William Optic Zenithstar 61 here. It is a awesome little lightweight scope. I used it a long time on top of the Star Adventure here with the counterweight kit, and I also ventured into guiding, which this scope here is called a guide scope. You won't need to get into guiding when you're first starting out because it adds a new level of challenges when it comes to guiding. A separate guide camera locks onto a star and sends signals back to your tracking mount for it to track better, and allows you to take longer exposure images without any star trailing. But that's for another level up. For the basics, I would highly recommend a tracking mount with the Skywatcher Star Adventure, or like the Ioptron Skyguider Pro. Two awesome mounts that can do great for wide field deep sky astrophotography. If you have a hold of one of these Canon 70-200 lenses, or maybe the 300mm prime lens, these are great for astrophotography. I just picked this one up not too long ago and have taken some pretty good shots with it so far. The good thing with zoom lenses, it gives you a lot of different opportunities for different deep sky objects. So if you want to shoot wide, you can shoot all the way out at 70. Then if you want to get up close on, say, the Orion Nebula, you can do just that all the way at 200mm. If you live in the city, this is what I'm going to talk about next, is light pollution. Light pollution is a huge factor in astrophotography. It can really degrade your image quality if you don't have the right stuff. Fortunately, I live in a Bortle Class 4 sky, which is a rural dark sky. It's not the darkest, but it's not really bright either, and it's a good mid-range in the scale of light pollution. But for some of you who live right in the city, in a Bortle 7, 8, or 9, you're going to struggle with light pollution. And to combat light pollution in astrophotography, we have light pollution filters. This is a IDIS LPS D2 Canon clip-in, so if you're imaging with a DSLR, this fits right in on top of the sensor right before you put the camera lens in, and this cuts out certain wavelengths of light, such as street lamps, mercury street lamps, or sodium street lamps that are really prevalent in the city, on city streets. So if you live in the city, I highly recommend getting a light pollution filter if you're planning on imaging from the city with a DSLR. It's a must-have if you are in a high light polluted area. So how does this all get set up, and the imaging, how do you start imaging? Well, your DSLR should be in full manual control. This is a stock Canon T7, great beginner grade DSLR. I would definitely look on the used market as well, such as a Canon XSI. This was my first astrophotography camera here, and I still use it. It is a great DSLR for beginning astrophotography. It's older, but it still has a 12 point something megapixel sensor, and it does really well with noise, believe it or not. One thing to help automate your imaging session is one of these camera intervalometers. You can type in, you can set the amount of exposures and time you want to take, and this plugs in right into the side of the DSLR, so you can put in, I want to take 100 2-minute exposures, and you can set it, and you'll be good to go for the night. And this was a great little piece of technology that I picked up right after I got started. Before, I would have to take like 30-second exposures manually every 30 seconds. This allows you to go into bulb mode in a manual DSLR and take as long of an exposure as you want. So a wired or wireless camera DSLR intervalometer is a must-have for deep sky astrophotography. Astrophotography is an amazing hobby, but it is expensive. So this is why I recommend going for something more affordable to start with before you go into getting larger telescopes or large mounts. The last thing you want to do is buy a big heavy mount and a big heavy telescope and never use it. That's why I highly recommend a small, portable, lightweight rig like this right here. And if you want to test out a telescope on it, definitely recommend a small apochromatic refractor like a Red Cat 51 or the William Optic Zenithstar 61 like this one. So if you have background in Adobe Photoshop, that is a big plus, and it's a big learning curve when you are processing astrophotos for the first time, because you're using totally different techniques if you've used Photoshop before. And it took me a long while to get pretty good at processing images, and I didn't have a good astrophoto for a good 4 or 5 months after I got started, and I just constantly wanted to improve my skills. And the best way you can do that is to constantly go out on clear nights and shoot stars. Just get out there and hone in your skills and see what you can do with the gear you have. Astrophotography is an amazing hobby, and I will never give it up. It's by far the most amazing, one of the most amazing hobbies there is out there, in my opinion, and I just love it, and I hope you guys do too. When it comes to astrophotography gear and setups, there's lots of ways to automate the process and make it more convenient and practical, such as using a laptop like I have done in the past, and now with the ZWO ASI Air I can control everything from my tablet, which is a big plus. But there are so many options for automating and computerizing your rig, but I'm saving that for my observatory. Thank you so much for the support for my YouTube channel. I want to thank you so much again, and as always, clear skies.